Awaken your spirit, chosen one. Something sacred is happening beneath the surface of your life, something most people can't see and many will never understand. You didn't imagine the shift. You weren't paranoid. That discomfort in your spirit, that was revelation knocking. That tension in your chest around certain people, that was discernment screaming. While others were smiling in your face and weaving webs behind your back, God was already writing the final scene. He didn't need your permission to expose what was hidden. He needed your obedience, to stay still, to not retaliate, to let him serve justice on a level no man could orchestrate. And he did. You've heard whispers in the spirit, hints, nudges, that something wasn't right. That certain people were clapping for you with one hand while holding a dagger in the other. And now the twist. Heaven was not only listening, it was documenting every word, every scheme, every lie, every plan cloaked in friendliness but rooted in envy. They thought they were getting away with it because you were silent. But your silence was sacred. Your stillness was strategic. God doesn't always expose in the moment, but when he does, he leaves no trace of confusion. If the world truly understood what God reveals to his chosen ones, they wouldn't mock your discernment. They'd fear your presence. Because you carry something heavy, not just favor, a divine assignment that makes hidden motives rise to the surface. You are the spiritual X-ray in a room full of camouflage. You don't try to uncover people. They get exposed by simply being near you. Why? Because you walk with light, and anything impure cannot hide in light for long. And that's why they watched you, why they talked about you, why they smiled but always seemed uncomfortable in your presence. They weren't reacting to your personality. They were reacting to your anointing. The truth is, you made them confront the parts of themselves they wanted to keep buried. That quiet power you carry, it's not just influence, it's spiritual evidence that God is alive and working through you. And for some people, that's more threatening than anything else. But here's what they didn't know. While they plotted, God was positioning you. While they whispered, God was writing. And while they tried to orchestrate your downfall, he was preparing a divine reveal, one that would leave no room for denial. Because when God exposes, he doesn't just remove the veil, he burns it. He makes it impossible for the ones who wronged you to continue pretending. He forces the truth to the surface in ways that even they can't deny. If the truth hadn't been hidden for a season, you might have trusted the wrong people longer. You might have allowed snakes to sit at your table, poisoning your peace. But God, in his mercy, didn't just show you who they were. He showed you who you are. You are the storm that moved in silence. You are the flame that burned without smoke. You are the light that drew out the shadows, not by force but by presence. And now, those who plotted behind closed doors have been served publicly, not with humiliation, but with revelation. And here's the beauty of it. You never had to lift a finger. You didn't have to clap back, expose screenshots, or spill receipts. You didn't have to match energy. You just had to keep showing up in truth, keep walking in love, and trust that God would fight for you in ways no one could predict. And he did. And now, the table is turned. You're rising, they're shrinking, and all of it was divine orchestration. If this message resonates with your spirit, then you already know. This was confirmation, not coincidence. Like this video, subscribe and comment. I've been vindicated by God to declare your alignment with this truth. This is your season of spiritual clarity, and God is not done showing you what's been hidden. Awaken, chosen one. Your spirit isn't broken, it's being reborn. What you feel stirring inside you is not confusion, and it's not fear. It's truth, rising from the ashes of betrayal, truth that was buried under fake smiles, hollow applause, and disguised intentions. Something sacred has shifted in the atmosphere around you. You may not see it fully yet, but your spirit knows. The winds have changed, and heaven has begun to reveal what was once hidden from your eyes. You've always felt different, like your soul was wired for something more, not louder, just deeper. While others chased approval, you searched for meaning. While others fought for attention, you prayed for clarity. And because of that, you've always been a mystery to people who only understand the surface of things. You, chosen one, are depth. In a world obsessed with appearance, and for that reason alone, you've been misunderstood, misjudged, and in many ways, mishandled. But make no mistake, God saw what you didn't, and He waited. He waited because divine exposure is not an act of revenge. It's an act of mercy. He could have told you everything from the start. He could have uncovered every lie, every secret, every fake conversation spoken in rooms you didn't even know existed. But He didn't, not because you weren't worthy of the truth, but because He was protecting your soul from knowing it too soon. Because what they did was not just against you, it was against the God in you. And when someone touches His anointed, He responds, not with emotion, but with divine precision. You see, while you were losing sleep over who was for you and who was against you, God was already orchestrating a holy reveal, one that would leave no room for confusion. You weren't forgotten, you were being positioned. And that's why the silence felt so heavy. That's why the isolation started to hurt. That's why certain people began falling away, not in drama, but in distance. They didn't walk away because you did something wrong. They walked away because your presence began to convict them. Your light began to irritate the demons they refused to confront. You never had to say a word. Your spirit did the speaking. God has seen every conversation where your name was twisted. Every plan made behind your back while you were praying for their peace. Every secret betrayal. And He took notes, not to hold it against them, but to store it for the right time. The time when He would lift you up, not in secret, but in plain sight. The time when they would have to watch the one they tried to destroy walk in divine favor. And that time is now. You've been prepared in private, processed in silence, forged in fire. You're not just chosen, you're refined. And that's what they couldn't see. They mistook your humility for weakness. They assumed your kindness was naivety. But you were never blind. You were protected. You weren't ignoring the signs. You were waiting on God's confirmation. And now He's given it. Not with a whisper, but with a divine unveiling that even your enemies can't deny. Your discernment wasn't broken. It was developing. You didn't miss the signs. God covered your eyes until you were strong enough to handle the weight of what He was about to show you. Because exposure without spiritual maturity leads to bitterness, but exposure after growth, that leads to elevation. And that's what's happening now. The very ones who tried to block your blessings are watching. God hand deliver them to your feet, not out of spite, but out of sovereignty. Don't underestimate what God has done for you in secret. That's where the real miracles happened. In the quiet hours when you questioned your worth, in the tears no one saw, in the prayers you whispered, through the pain. That's when God was building you. He wasn't just giving you strength, He was giving you eyes to see beyond the veil, eyes to discern spirit over performance, intent over words, truth over appearance. You're not just here to live, you're here to reveal, to walk into places that feel heavy and shift the atmosphere, to carry truth in a world built on illusion. You're the kind of person who brings clarity by just being present. People can't lie to you comfortably. They can't pretend around you for long. That's the weight of your calling. That's the cost of carrying divine light. You expose without trying, and that alone makes people uncomfortable. But you weren't sent to comfort them. You were sent to awaken them. And yes, that awakening will offend some. Because when you walk in the room, hidden agendas start trembling, masks begin to crack, motives start slipping, and people's true colors leak through their smiles. Not because you caused it, but because your energy demands the truth. And God uses you as a mirror a mirror that reflects not who they pretend to be, but who they really are. But now, chosen one, the season of quiet observation is over. God is flipping the script. He's turning the lights on in rooms that have been dark for too long. You're not walking into situations blind anymore. You're walking in with clarity, confidence, and the power of spiritual sight. You've been given authority to move forward, not with fear, but with full awareness of who you are and what you're carrying. This next chapter of your life won't be about proving anything. It'll be about demonstrating everything God has already placed inside you. The strength, the discernment, the purity of heart. It's all been tested and it's all been confirmed. That's why the attacks didn't break you. That's why the betrayal didn't stop you. Because you weren't standing on public opinion, you were standing on divine purpose, and no plot formed against you could cancel what heaven had already approved. Don't question the exposure. Don't regret the revelation. It was necessary. God didn't show you the truth to break your heart. He showed you so you'd stop giving access to people who were never aligned with your purpose. The revelation was the release. The exposure was the exit. Now you're free, free to walk in truth, free to move in power, free to surround yourself with those who reflect the same spiritual integrity you carry. So walk forward boldly. The veil has been torn, the masks have fallen, and now the path is clear. You don't owe anyone explanations. You don't need to defend your intuition. You were right. You were protected. And now you've been vindicated. The enemy's greatest tactic was keeping you surrounded by people who secretly doubted you, who subtly disrespected your vision, who smiled but never supported. But now that God has exposed them, you're no longer building in enemy territory. You're building on holy ground. Ground that has been cleared, purified, and sanctified by the fire you walked through. And let this be the reminder that carries you. What was hidden has been revealed, not by your power, but by God's hand. You didn't have to seek revenge. You didn't have to beg for truth. You just had to stay faithful. And because of that, justice was served without you having to say a word. This is the power of being chosen. This is the reward of walking in light. You're not here to react. You're here to reign. Not through force, but through favor. The kind of favor that makes even your enemies say, "Surely the Lord is with them." The kind of favor that breaks chains without making noise, that shifts rooms without demanding attention, that leaves a mark without leaving a scar. You are a living testimony that God still reveals, still protects, and still elevates those who trust Him, even when they don't understand. So keep walking, keep shining, and never again dim your light. To make others feel comfortable in their shadows. They've been exposed, you've been released, and heaven is moving on your behalf. Chosen one, you never had to lift a finger, because God already moved on your behalf. The justice that is unfolding in your life right now isn't the result of retaliation, but reverence. Reverence for the one who promised to fight your battles. Reverence for the God who told you to be still, even when everything in you wanted to react. While they schemed, you stayed silent. While they lied, you loved. While they moved in shadows, you remained in light, and that light, your light, is what caused everything hidden to rise to the surface. Not by force, but by spiritual design. You didn't match their energy because you were never meant to fight on their level. You were seated in a higher realm, a realm where battles are won without words, where tables are prepared in the presence of those who counted you out. That's why things are shifting now. That's why doors are opening without explanation, and those who once mocked your path are now quietly watching, wondering how you're still standing, still shining, still rising. They thought you'd fold under pressure, but they forgot. You were built in the fire, forged in silence, carved by seasons of solitude. And now that the harvest is here, the same people who tried to block you are learning this painful truth. You can't curse what God has called. Everything they did was seen. Every trap they set now sits empty while they walk into the very snares they designed for you, not because you wished harm on them, but because spiritual law doesn't lie. What a man sows, he reaps, and what they sowed in secrecy is now sprouting in public. But you're walking in gardens you didn't plant, drinking from wells you didn't dig. That's what happens when you choose obedience over vengeance, when you trust the process even when it breaks you, when you hand the pain back to God and say, I won't carry this, I'll let you serve it. And he did, perfectly, silently, without warning. But here's the deeper truth, chosen one. You weren't just the one they hurt. You were the one they were being tested by. You were the exam they didn't know they were taking. God placed you in their life as an opportunity for them to grow, to choose love, to break patterns of jealousy and deception. But instead of healing, they chose harm. Instead of honesty, they chose hiding. And in doing so, they revealed who they really were, not just to you, but to God. Because when someone mishandles a chosen one, they don't just fail in friendship or relationship, they fail in assignment. You were the test, and they failed. And the most powerful thing, you passed yours. You didn't allow their darkness to change your light. You didn't let their chaos disturb your character. Even when you saw glimpses of who they really were, you prayed for them. You gave them grace. You stayed loyal to people who weren't loyal to you. That wasn't weakness, that was wisdom, because you knew that your integrity was not dependent on their behavior. You were being watched too, not just by people but by heaven, and heaven saw it all. The tears you cried in silence, not wasted. The nights you wrestled with God asking, why do they keep winning while I keep hurting? Not forgotten. The confusion, the heartbreak, the loneliness, none of it was in vain. Because while they were failing their test, you were passing yours with excellence. And now the reward isn't just external, it's internal. You walk differently now, not bitter, but better, not guarded, but grounded, not hardened, but holy. That's the mark of someone who passed the test of betrayal with clean hands and a pure heart. And maybe that's why you've always felt set apart. Because God never allowed you to blend in. He never let your spirit settle in counterfeit places. He made you uncomfortable where others felt at home, not because you were broken, but because you were chosen. You weren't meant to stay in environments where your value had to be proven, where your presence was tolerated, but not celebrated. You were born to stand out, not because you were louder, but because you were truer. And in a world built on illusion, truth is disruptive. That's why the atmosphere changed when you entered the room. That's why people got quiet when you spoke. That's why you made some people nervous without even trying. It wasn't arrogance, it was alignment. You were aligned with heaven's frequency, and those living in deception felt it. They couldn't hide around you. Their masks itched. When you came near, their spirits squirmed because yours was clean. You didn't even need to say anything. Your presence was the test, and for many that was unbearable. But here's what you must understand now. Your isolation was intervention. God didn't let you stay in those circles because he was saving your soul from slow erosion. The people you thought were for you, they were leaking poison into your spirit. Not always through words, but through energy. Through envy disguised as advice, through jokes laced with judgment, through backhanded compliments and delayed support. They weren't rooting for you, they were studying you, trying to find weakness, hoping for your stumble, but they didn't realize you were being watched by heaven, and what they meant for harm became your holy exit, and that's why it ended the way it did, not with closure, but with clarity, not with apologies, but with silence. Because sometimes the silence is the loudest revelation. You didn't need them to explain. God already did. And now, the distance you feared has become the protection you praise. You see things clearer now. You feel lighter. You're not begging for access. You're not explaining your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. You've learned The art of walking away with peace instead of permission. You've learned that not everyone is meant to go with you. Some people are seasonal, some are lessons, and some are weights disguised as friends. And when God begins to elevate you, He removes what cannot survive the altitude. That's not punishment, it's preparation. Because the heights you're about to reach require clean hands and a clear circle. You can't afford to take contaminated connections into the next chapter, not because you're better, but because your calling is bigger. And as you rise, they will watch. Not because you seek their validation, but because God is using your life as evidence. Evidence that integrity still wins, that obedience still matters, that love still conquers. You're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to prove that God was right to choose you. Every test, every betrayal, every hidden agenda, they all served your becoming. They built a character in you that no platform can create. They gave you spiritual authority that no title can bestow. So don't mourn the loss. Celebrate the release. You didn't lose anything. You outgrew it. And now God is surrounding you with those who see you not as competition, but as confirmation. Confirmation that walking in truth is still powerful, that being chosen is still an honor, that rising without manipulation is still possible. You are walking proof that what was meant to break you only built you, that what was hidden has now been revealed, that the pit they dug for you has become the grave of their own deception. And as you step forward, don't carry bitterness. Carry boldness. Don't seek revenge. Seek revelation. Let the lessons fuel your next move. Let the clarity sharpen your focus. And let the peace of God be your confirmation that you've graduated from that season. You are not who they said you were. You are who God ordained you to be. And now the world is about to see it, not because you said a word, but because God is making it undeniable. They tried to bury you, but they forgot. You were a seed, and now, chosen one, you are blooming. Chosen, when the exposure was never meant to embarrass them, it was meant to elevate you. It wasn't vengeance, it was vindication. What God revealed was not random, it was sacred timing. And now the unveiling has become your unlocking. The truth has shattered the illusion, and what once confused you now empowers you. The fog has lifted. The silence makes sense, and you're finally beginning to see the reason behind every delay, every detour, every door that was shut in your face. You weren't being denied, you were being preserved. What was exposed wasn't just about the people, it was about your path. You see, there comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the disguise must fall, when the people who were assigned to delay your destiny are removed, not by your hand, but by divine command, because God never allows deception to dwell in your promised land. Before He ushers you into increase, He clears the ground. Before He opens the next door, He locks the ones behind you. You are not walking into the next season with false alignment. The house of cards has fallen. And now your foundation is truth. This is the beginning of your rise, not in secret, but in sight. You are being lifted in full view, not as a spectacle, but as a statement. You are the proof that God doesn't just bless, they prepare. He didn't just build your gift, He fortified your discernment. You now move differently, not with noise, but with knowing, not with fear, but with focus. Because once your eyes have seen the truth, your spirit can never again settle for pretense. That's why your elevation will never look like theirs. You didn't cheat your way into favor. You didn't manipulate your way into visibility. You were refined, not rushed. And now, God is placing you exactly where you belong. They won't understand how you got here because they didn't see the sacrifice. They didn't witness the pruning. They didn't experience the breaking. They only saw glimpses. But God saw the whole journey. He saw what you gave up to grow. He saw the nights you stayed faithful when it would have been easier to fold. And now He's giving you a reward that no man can question, because your fruit will speak louder than their fiction. You are about to reap in places where you were once ridiculed. You're going to bloom in soil where they said nothing would. Grow. Not because of who you know, but because of who you are. Your rise is not fueled by revenge. It's guided by revelation. You understand now that exposure was not the end of the story. It was the entrance to the stage. God had to pull back the curtain to show you who could stand beside you in destiny and who could not. It hurt, yes, but now that the mask is gone, you are free. Free to walk into favor without checking your back. Free to expand without questioning motives. Free to love without being drained. You have clarity now, and clarity is currency in the kingdom. But even as you rise, you will hear the whispers. You will feel the tension in the room, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence now carries weight. Spiritual weight. You don't just enter quietly anymore. You shift the atmosphere. You carry the oil of experience, the fragrance of survival, the fire of endurance. People sense it. Some will celebrate it. Others will be offended by it. But that's not your burden. You didn't ask for applause. You asked for peace. And now that you've found it, protect it like treasure. Because here's the truth. Your light is not accidental. It is assigned. You are light in a world that thrives on shadows. You walk with truth in a system that feeds on illusion. You carry peace in rooms built on conflict. And because of that, you are a mirror, a living reflection of everything people have been trying to hide from themselves. That's why some are drawn to you with love, and others recoil in resentment. Not because of who you are, but because of what you reflect. And when someone's soul is not ready to confront their own shadows, your authenticity becomes unbearable. So don't be surprised if you become a topic of conversation. Don't flinch when people distance themselves. It's not always betrayal, it's spiritual reaction. Your anointing will either awaken people or agitate what's unhealed in them. Either way, it's not your job to shrink. You were born to stand. Born to speak without yelling, born to lead without demanding, born to change things without trying. That's power. And that's why you've been through what you've been through, because God had to prove your purity under pressure. He's needed to know that when the tables turned, you wouldn't mirror your enemies. He needed to be sure that when he elevated, you wouldn't lose the humility that made you trustworthy. You passed the test. You stayed pure. You stayed kind. You didn't lose your fire, you just learned how to control it. And now that you've been through the flame and came out refined, he's giving you what they tried to keep from you: honor, access, peace, and platforms not built by manipulation, but by mission. But hear this, your rise is only part of the story. Your posture in the rise is what heaven is watching now. Keep your hands clean, keep your heart guarded, keep your mind aligned. You are now walking in sacred territory. Every step you take from this moment on is not just for you, it's for every soul connected to your assignment. You are the vessel, you are the answer to prayers prayed in rooms you've never stepped in. Don't doubt it. You were chosen not because you were perfect, but because you were willing. And because you were willing, God has closed the curtain on confusion and opened the heavens over your life. You are no longer waiting for validation. You are no longer seeking understanding from the very ones who were sent to misunderstand you. You're not asking for entry into rooms you were called to own. The waiting season is over. The warfare was not wasted. The silence was not punishment. It was strategy. And now it's your time to speak, not with words, but with your walk. There's a confidence rising in you now, not the kind that comes from pride, but from alignment, from knowing who sent you, from knowing what you survived, from recognizing that the weapons formed, but they did not prosper. And because of that, there is a holy boldness on your life that cannot be stolen. You move different now, not out of fear, but out of focus. You're no longer distracted by the noise. You are too tuned in to the voice of God. That's maturity, that's power. That's what makes you dangerous in the eyes of darkness. So walk forward with your head held high. You carry too much oil to blend in. You've been through too much fire to explain yourself to people who haven't been through the same furnace. You don't owe anyone clarity about a process they were never a part of. You owe it to yourself to keep walking, to keep shining, to keep obeying, even when it doesn't make sense. Because God is not done. He's still revealing, still restoring, still repaying, and yes, repayment is coming. Not just in blessings, but in balance. The scales are shifting. The spiritual debt is being settled. You didn't just survive the storm, you inherited the keys it was guarding. You didn't just endure the betrayal, you now carry wisdom that only heartbreak can teach. That's why you're unstoppable, because you've learned how to thrive in the valley, and now you're about to reign on the mountain. Don't look back. Don't water down your words. Don't play small to make anyone else feel comfortable. You've been through too much to pretend, too much to shrink, too much to keep quiet about a God who revealed what was hidden and turned it all for. You're good. You are the evidence, the walking revelation, the quiet storm who outlasted every lie, every attack, every trap, and you did it with your integrity intact. Chosen one, never forget this. What God reveals, He also restores. What He exposes, He also redeems. And what He removes, He always replaces with better. Your hands may have been empty for a while, but your heart was never void. And now what's coming will be so saturated in His fingerprints that there will be no room for doubt. It will be clear, it will be holy, it will be yours. You are not rising by chance, you are rising by design. And no devil in hell, no agenda in darkness, no jealousy, lie or curse can stop what God has already decreed. This is your time, your light, your moment, not to be seen, but to be used. So rise, not just for you, but for every soul assigned to witness your testimony. And remember, if God did it for you, He'll do it for them too. And if He's revealing now, it means the next level is here. And this time, you're ready. Chosen one, the wounds didn't make you weak, they made you wise. What you went through wasn't meant to destroy you, it was designed to define you. Every tear you cried in silence watered the roots of your spiritual maturity. Every time you chose grace over revenge, heaven took note. Every time you wanted to scream, but instead bowed your head and whispered a prayer, the angels stood still. You've been learning to walk in authority, not arrogance, power, not pride. And now you're not just surviving, you're walking. With the quiet confidence of someone who knows they were born for more. But don't forget this, as you rise, you will be tempted to shrink. Tempted to soften the truth so others don't feel uncomfortable around your strength. Tempted to make room for people who showed you they were not ready for where you're headed. That temptation comes wrapped in good intentions, but it's a trap. Because the truth is, not everyone can handle your glow. Not everyone can stand next to favor without resenting it. And not everyone deserves a seat at the table God prepared just for you. That's why discernment is more important now than ever before. Not just about who enters your life, but who you allow to stay. You can forgive someone and still recognize they're not equipped to walk beside you in this season. You can have love in your heart and still choose distance, not out of bitterness, but out of alignment. Because when God elevates you, He doesn't just bring blessings, He brings boundaries. And those boundaries are a form of protection, not isolation. Some people will return with apologies once they see you rising. They'll try to come back, not because they've changed, but because your fruit has become too obvious to deny. But your job is not to carry guilt for choosing peace. You're not required to reopen doors that God Himself has shut. Restoration doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means respecting what you've learned and moving forward in wisdom. You've seen too much now. You've grown too deep. You've heard God in ways that can't be explained, only experienced. And once your soul has encountered that level of clarity, confusion has no place in your inner circle. You're not holding grudges, you're honoring growth. You're not harboring resentment, you're protecting your anointing. And your anointing, chosen one, is rare, it's costly, it's heavy, and it cannot be entrusted to just anyone. This is a new realm for you, one where your presence speaks louder than your words. One where the room changes when you enter, not because of your title, but because of your spiritual weight. You carry fire without noise, wisdom without pride, authority without domination. And that's unsettling to people who haven't yet made peace with their own reflection. You're not their enemy, but your presence is a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face what's looking back at them. Still, your job isn't to dim your light to protect someone else's insecurities. Your job is to stand fully in who you are, boldly, gracefully, unapologetically. That doesn't mean becoming hard. It means becoming whole. That doesn't mean being proud. It means being anchored. Because now you know who you are. You know who sent you. You know why the enemy tried so hard to break you. Because your very existence is a threat to every lie that's ever been spoken over your bloodline. You are the shift. You are the curse breaker. You are the generational detour that changes the direction of everything that came before you. You didn't just survive the fire. You became fire. And that flame in you is holy. That passion in you is prophetic. That ache in you is divine. It's the sound of destiny knocking. And now you're walking in rooms with the understanding that your presence is not casual. It's calculated by God. Your every step has been prepared. Your every connection is divine. Your every move is strategic. And nothing can stop what's already been written in heaven about you. You don't need to chase favor. Favor finds you. You don't need to prove yourself. You've already been approved. You don't need to beg for inclusion. You've already been chosen. And what God chooses, He covers. What He covers, He equips. What He equips, He sends. And when He sends, He clears the path. That's what's happening now. Paths are being cleared, not just outside of you, but within you. Your mind is being renewed. Your spirit is being strengthened. Your heart is being healed, not because you're doing everything perfectly, but because you've remained faithful, even when faith felt like holding on to splinters. You didn't quit. You didn't collapse. You may have crawled, but you kept moving. And that is why the reward that's coming isn't just material, it's transformational. You're going to wake up with a different kind of peace, one that doesn't come from circumstances, but from certainty. Certainty that God has you, certainty that no attack formed against you prospered, certainty that the battles weren't punishments, they were preparations. Every spiritual scar you carry is now a badge of authority, not to boast, but to break chains for others. You're not just rising for yourself, you're rising for generations. So now walk with reverence, not fear, but holy awareness. You've been trusted with vision, trusted with access, trusted with insight. That's not random, that's royalty. That's the mark of someone who has been processed by heaven. Someone who knows how to speak when it's time and stay silent when it's sacred. Someone who understands that the loudest declarations are sometimes made by quiet obedience. Your legacy isn't being built through noise. It's being carved through character, through the way you show up, through the way you love, through the way you choose integrity when no one is watching. That's what separates you. That's what heaven celebrates. Not your platform, but your posture. Not your influence, but your intercession. Not your clout, but your consistency. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep obeying, because this is only the beginning. The more you align, the more heaven will assign. The more you release, the more God will reveal. And the more you become, the more the world will have to recognize that this kind of rise could only come from God. They thought your silence meant defeat, but now they see it was strategy. They thought your tears were weakness, but now they know they were weapons. They thought the ending they gave you would bury you, but now the world will see it only planted you. And the harvest that's rising now is not just for you to taste, it's for you to feed nations, because you are more than a survivor. You are more than a fighter. You are more than a dreamer. You are the fulfillment of a divine word spoken long before you were born. And now that word is unfolding. That promise is materializing. That power is rising, not by might, not by force, but by the Spirit of the living God. And no man, no system, no enemy can rewrite what's already been sealed in heaven about you. You were chosen for this, built for this, anointed for this. And now every step you take will echo through the spirit realm as proof that when God says yes, nothing and no one can stand in the way. Chosen one, walk in that, because now everything changes. Chosen one, this is your moment, not the one they thought you'd never reach, but the one God always knew you would. This is the season where silence becomes strength, where pain becomes prophecy, and where everything that tried to break you bows to the purpose that kept you alive. You've spent nights wondering why you had to walk alone. You've questioned the weight, the warfare, the wilderness, but now you're beginning to understand what you called abandonment was actually assignment. What felt like rejection was divine redirection. You were never forgotten. You were being formed. You didn't lose time. You gained wisdom. You didn't fall behind. You were being hidden in the cleft of the rock while storms passed. And now the clouds are parting. The heavens are speaking. And you, the one they overlooked, the one they dismissed, the one they whispered about, you are rising on schedule. The world didn't see what God was doing in you because He built it in silence. He shaped your purpose in private. And now it's time to step into your next chapter. There will be no denying that your journey was divinely authored. You've been prepared in ways most will never understand. That's why your steps feel heavier than others. That's why your walk required more shedding, more stillness, more soul-searching. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. Chosen vessels aren't made in convenience. They're made in consecration. Your isolation was not evidence of being cast out. It was confirmation that God needed your full attention. And now that He has it, He's about to do what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. You have a different kind of power. The kind that doesn't beg to be noticed. The kind that doesn't shout to be seen. The kind that doesn't force itself into rooms, but shifts the atmosphere just by showing up. That's what it means to be chosen. It means you've been equipped for things others don't see coming. It means your presence breaks chains. Your voice silences confusion. Your obedience opens gates that no key on earth can turn. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. And alignment is what draws miracles. You are no longer waiting for confirmation. You are the confirmation. No more asking for permission to be powerful. No more watering down your words so others don't feel convicted. No more shrinking just to fit spaces you were sent to shift. You are not a mirror for someone else's insecurity. You are a living reflection of divine courage. And now is the time to stand in that fully, without fear, without apology, without hesitation. There will be moments when your soul trembles with the weight of what you carry. But even in those moments, you'll remember this. You've already survived what tried to kill your spirit. You've already faced the shadows and found light. You've already been emptied just to discover that heaven never left you. That means you're not fragile, you're fortified, you're not weak, you're wise. And that wisdom is now the sword you carry, not to destroy others, but to cut through every lie the enemy has ever spoken over your identity. You were never meant to fit in. You were designed to shift foundations. You're not here to echo what's been said. You're here to declare what has yet to be spoken. The reason your voice carries weight is because it was forged in fire. You didn't just wake up anointed. You bled for it. You waited. You listened. You walked away from what looked good so you could receive what was God. That's why your words carry deliverance. That's why your steps break cycles. You are the interruption in a pattern of spiritual poverty, emotional bondage, and generational confusion. You are the first light after years of silence. So move with purpose now. Walk like the oil is on you. Speak like heaven is backing you. Live like you've already won, because in the Spirit you have. The battles you face now are not threats. They are confirmations. You don't fight for victory. You fight from it. You don't beg for protection. You are protected. You don't search for your identity in people. You find it in the one who formed you in the secret place and called you worthy before anyone knew your name. The enemies you once feared now fear your resilience. The traps that were set now serve as your testimony. The wounds that once defined you are now doors to your greatest healing. Because every crack in your armor became a window for God's glory to shine through. You weren't just rescued, you were reborn, and that rebirth came with revelation. You were never ordinary, you were ordained. So look ahead, not with dread, but with divine expectation, because what's coming next requires your full presence. No more waiting for the world to see you. God has already crowned you in places unseen. What's unfolding now is not a coincidence, it's a culmination of prayers you forgot you prayed, of seeds you didn't even realize you were planting, of obedience that felt like dying but led to life more abundantly. And now you walk with heaven's breath behind you. Every step you take echoes in eternity. Every move you make sets the stage for those coming behind you. You are the blueprint. You are the answered prayer. You are the open door for someone else's deliverance. Don't ever forget that. No matter how far you've been stretched, no matter how deeply you've been wounded, no matter how long you've walked misunderstood, God has never wasted a single moment of your story. He's been writing something sacred through every disappointment, etching glory through every valley. And now that story is ready to be read out loud through your life. Chosen one, lift your head, open your heart, and step fully into your extraordinary purpose. Because you weren't just called to survive, you were created to reign, not over people, but over fear, not for show, but for glory. You carry the divine fingerprint of the one who placed eternity in your spirit. And now, eternity is speaking through you. This is your time. This is your rise. This is your unveiling. Walk boldly into it. Heaven has already gone before you.